The first phone rose before the bride had even reached the altar. Then another. Then 10 more. Evelyn Hart stood in the aisle of the small church outside Minneapolis, holding a white bouquet that suddenly felt too heavy in her hands, while the people she loved turned their faces toward the sky. At first, she thought someone had fainted. Then she heard it. A low engine sound cutting through the quiet afternoon. The church doors were open behind her. Warm air moved through the aisle. Somewhere above the roof, a small plane dragged a long white banner across the blue sky. The first time it passed, people only stared. The second time, someone gasped. The third time, Evelyn read every word. A useless daughter does not deserve a happy marriage. For 1 second, nobody breathed. Then the whispers started. Evelyn did not look at the guests. She did not look at the pastor. She looked straight at the front row, where her mother sat with her legs crossed, her navy dress pressed smooth, her silver earrings shining like she had come to a business lunch instead of her daughter's wedding. Margaret Hart did not look surprised. That was how Evelyn knew. This was not an accident. This was not a prank. This was not a bad joke that had gone too far. This was planned. Beside the altar, Caleb turned his head slowly. He was a calm man. Evelyn had seen him handle angry contractors, broken project plans, and million-dollar delays without raising his voice. But right then, his face changed in a way she had never seen before. His hand reached for hers. "Evelyn," he said under his breath, "say the word, and I'll stop this." His voice was soft, but his hand was shaking. Not from fear. From fury. Evelyn looked up again as the plane circled back over the church roof. The banner snapped in the wind like a sentence being whipped across her life. Then she squeezed Caleb's hand. "No," she whispered. "We finish this." The pastor looked lost. His eyes moved from Evelyn to Caleb, then to the guests, then to the sky. He opened his book again, though his fingers were not steady. "We are gathered here today." He had barely spoken 2 lines when Evelyn's mother stood. She did not jump up. She did not cry. She rose slowly, like a woman taking her place on a stage she believed belonged to her. "I object," Margaret said. The church went silent again. No one had asked for objections. That part of the ceremony had not even been included. But Margaret did not care. She lifted her chin and looked at Caleb as though Evelyn were no longer in the room. This man deserves the truth before he makes a mistake he cannot undo. Caleb's jaw tightened. Evelyn felt the blood leave her fingers. Margaret turned slightly, making sure her voice reached the back row. "My daughter has hidden things from him. Private things. Medical things. Things that affect the kind of future a husband has a right to expect." A sound moved through the church. Not loud. Not clear. Just a wave of discomfort. Evelyn did not move. The words were lies. Every one of them. But Margaret knew lies did not need to live forever. They only needed to land at the right moment. Her mother wanted one crack in Caleb's face. One pause. 1 second of doubt. She wanted Evelyn's wedding memory to have a stain no apology could wash away. Caleb stepped forward. Evelyn held him back. "Don't," she whispered. "They want a scene." His eyes stayed on Margaret. "She doesn't get to do this to you." "She already did," Evelyn said. "Now let her finish proving it." Before Caleb could answer, Evelyn's father stood. Robert Hart had always been a quieter kind of cruel. Her mother used sharp words. Her brother used laughter. Her father used calm. Calm made his damage look reasonable. He walked into the aisle with a white envelope in his hand. Not a gift envelope. A payment envelope. He stopped a few feet from Caleb and held it out. $50,000, Robert said. Walk away before this becomes your life. The guests stared at him like they could not understand what they were seeing. Caleb looked down at the envelope, then back at Robert. You brought money to my wedding, he said. Robert's face did not change. I brought you a way out. No, Caleb said. You brought proof of what kind of father you are. Robert's hand stayed in the air. No one took the envelope. Then Evelyn heard laughter from the side aisle. Her brother, Nolan, was standing near the third row with his phone raised high. He was not recording quietly. He wanted to be seen. He wanted everyone to know he was catching every second. His smile was wide and ugly. Keep going, Nolan said, half under his breath, but loud enough for people nearby to hear. This is the best thing that ever happened in this family. Evelyn saw the screen. Live. He was streaming it. Her wedding. Her mother's lie. Her father's bribe. The plane above the church. All of it was being sent to people back in Cedar Rapids who had not been invited, people who would turn another person's pain into lunch table entertainment before sunset. Caleb's father stood then. He was not tall, but the room listened when he spoke. Sit down, he said to Evelyn's family. Or leave. Margaret gave him a cold smile. This is family business. Caleb's mother stepped into the aisle before anyone else could move. Her voice was quiet, but it cut cleaner than shouting. No. This is a wedding. And you have already shown everyone what kind of family you are. For the first time, Margaret's smile slipped. Only a little. But Evelyn saw it. The pastor looked at Evelyn again. Do you want to continue? Nolan's phone stayed raised. Robert still held the envelope. The plane passed once more above the church, dragging those words across the sky like her mother believed heaven itself had taken her side. Evelyn took one breath. Then another. She turned toward Caleb. I do. The pastor blinked. We have not reached that part yet. A small, broken laugh moved through the room. Even Caleb almost smiled. Evelyn did not look away from him. I know. Caleb lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. I do too, he said. The pastor closed his book halfway, as if he understood that the ceremony no longer needed beauty. It needed truth. He moved quickly. The vows became shorter. The room became still. And when Caleb placed the ring on Evelyn's finger, his hand was steady again. When he kissed her, the applause started slowly. Then it grew. Not polite applause. Protective applause. Some guests stood. Some wiped their eyes. Some looked at Margaret with open disgust. Nolan lowered his phone for the first time. Evelyn smiled. Not because it did not hurt. It hurt so deeply she could feel it behind her ribs. She smiled because her family had finally made one mistake they could not hide behind closed doors. They had done it in public. They had done it on camera. They had done it in front of witnesses. And Evelyn had spent 6 years quietly preparing for the day they would forget she knew how to keep records. She had not always been this calm. Long before that church, before Caleb, before Minneapolis, before the white dress and the banner in the sky, Evelyn had been the daughter who fixed everything and was thanked for nothing. Her parents owned Heartline Events in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. On the outside, it looked like a proud family business. They catered weddings, school banquets, church dinners, charity nights, and all the shiny small-town events where people smiled for photos and whispered afterward. To the town, the Harts were hardworking and generous. Inside the house, Evelyn learned early that family was not a feeling. It was a job. Her older brother Nolan was the son people clapped for. He could miss deliveries, insult staff, lose clients, and still be called bold. Evelyn could repair a broken schedule, catch an unpaid permit, calm an angry vendor, and rebuild a whole event plan overnight, and her mother would say, "Good. At least you were useful." Useful. That word followed her everywhere. Useful daughters did not complain. Useful daughters did not ask for pay. Useful daughters did not embarrass the family by wanting their own lives. When Evelyn was 18, she left for college and studied compliance and logistics. Her father called it paperwork. Her mother called it selfish. Nolan called it running away. But Evelyn knew the truth. They were not angry because she had failed them. They were angry because she had learned a skill they could not control. After college, she moved to Minneapolis and built a life made of quiet things: a small condo, a steady job, bills paid on time, clean windows, calm mornings, and a phone she did not have to answer every time her mother wanted to pull the leash. She became a senior compliance analyst for a medical logistics company. Her work was not glamorous. She read contracts. She checked records. She found the weak spots people tried to cover with excuses. She was good at it. Very good. And the better she became, the angrier her family grew. Every holiday visit became a test. Her mother would ask when she planned to stop pretending a desk job was a real life. Her father would remind her that family businesses did not survive on pride. Nolan would laugh and say the company needed people who could handle real pressure, not spreadsheets. But Heartline Events was already cracking under Nolan's hands. Evelyn knew because she had been watching. Vendors were getting paid late. Refrigerated trucks were overdue for service. Former staff posted careful warnings online about missing overtime and unsafe kitchen shortcuts. A school district ended a contract without making noise. Churches started asking for extra guarantees. Her parents blamed rising costs. They blamed workers. They blamed customers. They blamed everything except the son they had chosen over the daughter who had kept the place running for years. Then there was the warehouse. That was the part they forgot mattered. Evelyn's grandmother had owned a small cold storage unit with a loading yard on the edge of an old industrial district. It was not pretty. The paint peeled near the side door. The office smelled faintly of dust and metal. The lights hummed when they came on. But it had cold hookups, loading space, and enough room for trucks, freezers, ovens, tables, linens, and all the heavy equipment Heartline Events needed to survive. When Evelyn's grandmother died, the property did not go to Robert. It did not go to Margaret. It did not go to Nolan. It went to Evelyn. The deed had her name on it. Her parents never asked to rent it. They never signed a lease. They never offered fair payment. They simply kept using it, because they had always believed Evelyn's things were family things, and family things were theirs. So Evelyn paid the property taxes. She kept the insurance documents. She took photos every few months. She saved texts where her father casually mentioned our storage place, though the county records clearly said otherwise. She tracked market rent for commercial cold storage units nearby. At first, she told herself it was just protection. Not revenge. Protection. Because something inside her knew her family would one day hurt her loudly enough that silence would no longer be safe. Then Caleb came into her life. He met her at a healthcare infrastructure conference in St. Paul. He was a civil engineer, the kind of man who listened without waiting for his turn to win. He did not try to fix Evelyn in one conversation. He simply noticed things. The first time he had dinner with her family, Margaret smiled too sweetly and asked if he really wanted a woman who cared so much about her career. Robert spoke about loyalty as if it meant obedience. Nolan asked Caleb if he knew Evelyn had a habit of leaving hard work for other people. Caleb did not argue at the table. He did not perform. He waited until they were outside, standing beside the car under the yellow porch light. Then he said, "You are not making it up." Evelyn looked at him. For simple words. No drama. No pity. No advice. Just truth. She nearly cried right there on the sidewalk. When Caleb proposed, she told her family by phone. Margaret's first question was why the wedding had to be in Minnesota. Robert asked if marriage would finally make Evelyn ready to come home. Nolan asked if he was supposed to stand beside her after she had abandoned the company. Evelyn said they were invited as guests. Only guests. There was a pause on the line. Then Margaret said, "We'll see." Evelyn should have known then. Maybe she did. By the time the wedding day arrived, she had already saved her attorney's contact under a plain name in her phone. She had already copied property files into a secure folder. She had already told Lauren, her best friend, that if anything strange happened, she needed screenshots, timestamps, names, and video. Lauren had asked, "Do you really think they would do something at your wedding?" Evelyn had looked at her dress hanging from the closet door. "I think they believe I won't do anything back." That was the difference. At the reception, her family acted as though they had only spilled a glass of wine. Margaret sat at a table near the side wall, eating calmly, asking a server if the sauce had dairy in it. Robert complained that his seat was too close to the speakers. Nolan kept checking his phone, smiling at comments only he could see. Caleb wanted them removed. His father offered to handle it quietly. His mother took Evelyn's hands and asked if she needed a private room. Evelyn shook her head. "No," she said. "Let the photographer keep working." Caleb looked at her. "You don't have to pretend." "I'm not pretending," Evelyn said. "I'm documenting." So she danced. She cut the cake. She thanked guests who hugged her too tightly because they did not know what else to do. And while Evelyn smiled for photos her mother had tried to poison, Lauren moved through the reception with her phone, collecting every post, every comment, every share from Nolan's livestream. By the end of dinner, the video had spread through their hometown. People who had once smiled at Evelyn in grocery stores were typing cruel things beneath a recording of her wedding. Some laughed. Some said Margaret must have had a reason. Some asked if the medical lie was true. Some said Evelyn had always thought she was better than Cedar Rapids. Evelyn read only a few. Then she handed the phone back. "Save all of it," she said. Lauren nodded. But there was one detail Evelyn had not expected. Halfway through the reception, her stomach cramped so hard she had to leave the table. At first, she thought it was stress. Then one of the catering assistants, nervous and pale, quietly told Lauren that there had been special instructions for one plate. The bride's plate. Evelyn did not confront her mother. She did not accuse anyone at the reception. She finished the night. Then the next morning, while Caleb slept beside her with one arm still around her waist, Evelyn sat at the kitchen table in her robe and began making calls. She requested the catering records, the final invoice, the service notes, any last-minute changes. At first, the owner sounded confused, then careful, then afraid. There had been a separate cash payment. There had been a request for one specific plate to be prepared differently as a family joke. The person who gave the instruction had been an older woman in a navy dress with silver earrings. Evelyn closed her eyes. Not because she was surprised. Because some part of her had still hoped there was a floor her mother would not sink beneath. There was not. She asked the owner to preserve every record. Then she forwarded everything to her attorney. After that, she opened the folder she had kept for 6 years. The warehouse deed. Tax receipts. Insurance records. Photos. Text messages. Market rent comparisons. A spreadsheet calculating years of unpaid commercial storage. Caleb came into the kitchen and saw the screen. He did not ask if she was sure. He only placed a cup of coffee beside her and sat down. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Evelyn clicked one file open. "My grandmother used to say something," she said quietly. "Never confuse being needed with being loved." Caleb looked at the documents. Then at her. "What do you want to do?" Evelyn stared at the deed with her name on it. Outside, the morning was bright and peaceful, almost cruelly normal. Her phone buzzed again. Mother. Then father. Then Nolan. 3 missed calls in less than a minute. Evelyn turned the phone face down. "I want them to learn the difference," she said, "between access and ownership." That afternoon, her attorney sent the notice by certified mail and email. Heartline Events had 30 days to remove every truck, freezer, oven, table, linen rack, ice machine, and piece of company equipment from Evelyn's warehouse and loading yard. If they failed, Evelyn would pursue back rent, unauthorized use fees, legal costs, and damages. The notice was not emotional. It did not mention the banner. It did not mention the livestream. It did not mention the lie at the altar or the envelope in Robert's hand. It simply stated facts. Property. Use. Deadline. Consequence. By sunset, Evelyn's phone showed 17 missed calls from her father, 9 from her mother, and a string of messages from Nolan calling her greedy, unstable, and sick. She saved every one. Then she looked across the table at Caleb. For the first time since the plane crossed the church sky, Evelyn allowed herself to breathe. Her family had spent her whole life believing she was too useful to lose and too quiet to fight. Now they had 30 days to discover that the daughter they tried to shame in public owned the ground their business was standing on. For the first 3 days, they did exactly what Evelyn expected. They acted offended. Not afraid. Offended. Margaret sent long messages filled with words like family, forgiveness, pain, and disappointment. She wrote as if she had been the one standing in a wedding dress while a plane dragged cruelty across the sky. She said Evelyn was letting anger poison her heart. She said daughters should not punish their parents over one emotional mistake. One emotional mistake. Evelyn read that line twice, then saved the message. Robert's messages were different. His were not polished. They were practical, clipped, and heavy with pressure. The warehouse was necessary. The trucks needed the hookups. The kitchen equipment could not be moved without cost. The employees would suffer. Clients would lose trust. Vendors would panic. He wrote like a man explaining a storm, not admitting he had helped create it. Nolan went public. He posted that his sister was trying to destroy a family business because she could not take a joke. He called her bitter. He called her greedy. He said she had always hated seeing other people succeed. He did not mention the plane. He did not mention the livestream. He did not mention the envelope. He did not mention that his own recording had captured all of it. Evelyn did not respond. She had learned something in her years of compliance work. People who build lies often panic when you refuse to step inside them. They want you to argue because arguments can be twisted. Facts cannot. So she kept saving everything. Screenshots. Voicemails. Emails. Deleted posts someone else had already copied. Comments from people who had not called to ask if she was okay, but suddenly felt qualified to tell her she was cruel. On the 9th day, Robert drove from Cedar Rapids to Minneapolis and parked outside Evelyn's condo. Caleb saw the truck first. He was standing by the window with a mug in his hand when his face changed. Evelyn followed his eyes and saw her father sitting behind the wheel, staring at the building like he was waiting for courage to arrive. "I'll go down with you," Caleb said. Evelyn picked up her phone and opened the recorder. "No," she said. "But stay where I can see you." Robert stayed in the truck for almost 20 minutes. Then he got out, shut the door harder than he needed to, and walked toward her. He looked older in daylight. Not weak. Just less certain. The same man who had held out money at her wedding now stood near the curb with both hands in his coat pockets. "You've made your point," he said. Evelyn said nothing. Robert looked toward her phone. "Are you recording me?" "Yes." His mouth tightened. "That's what we are now." "That's what we have been for a long time," Evelyn said. "I'm just no longer pretending." He looked away first. For a moment, traffic moved behind him. A bus sighed at the corner. A dog barked from somewhere down the block. The world kept going, even while a father tried to decide which version of himself would work best. He chose the businessman. Heartline can't operate without that warehouse. The trucks need cold access. The portable units need protected storage. Moving everything at once would cost more than you understand. "I understand costs," Evelyn said. "You understand forms," Robert snapped. "This is real life." Evelyn let the words sit there. Then she said, "Real life was my wedding day too." His face hardened. "That got out of hand." "The plane?" He exhaled. "Your mother was emotional." "The public lie?" She was scared for Caleb. "The envelope?" Robert's eyes flickered. Evelyn stepped a little closer. "Was $50,000 also fear?" He did not answer. Behind the lobby glass, Caleb stood still, watching. Robert lowered his voice. "You are putting employees at risk." "No," Evelyn said. "You built a company around property you did not own. You put them at risk." His jaw worked slowly. Then he tried the oldest weapon. "Blood. Your grandmother would be ashamed to see you use her property like this." For the first time that morning, Evelyn felt something sharp move through her chest. Not pain. Memory. Her grandmother in a faded kitchen robe, pouring tea at a small table. Her grandmother's hand over Evelyn's wrist after another family dinner where everyone had praised Nolan for work Evelyn had done. Never confuse being useful with being loved. Evelyn looked at her father. Grandma left that warehouse to me, she said. Not to Heartline. Not to Nolan. Not to you. Robert's face changed. Only a little. Enough. Evelyn saw it. The anger behind his eyes was not just about money. It was about insult. He could not stand that something useful had passed through the family and landed in her hands. Not his. Not his son's. Hers. You always thought you were better than us, he said. Evelyn shook her head. No. I just stopped agreeing that I was less. Robert stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back to his truck. He left without saying goodbye. Evelyn stood there until the truck disappeared around the corner. Her hands were steady while he was there. They began shaking only after he was gone. Caleb came outside and wrapped his arms around her. He did not tell her to calm down. That was one of the reasons she loved him. Calm had been demanded from Evelyn her whole life, usually by the people who had just hurt her. With Caleb, she did not have to earn gentleness by staying quiet. That night, Nolan's wife messaged Evelyn on Instagram. Her name was Claire. She had always been polite in the careful way people become polite when they live near anger. She wrote that she was not defending what happened at the wedding. She wrote that she knew it had been awful. Then came the real reason. The company was behind. Vendors were waiting. Their home loan was tied to Nolan's position in Heartline. If the warehouse was lost, the whole business could collapse. Please, Claire wrote. Don't punish everyone for one bad day. Evelyn stared at that phrase. One bad day. The plane had flown for hours. Her mother had stood during the vows. Her father had brought money. Her brother had gone live. Someone had touched her food. That was not one bad day. That was one day when their masks slipped at the same time. Evelyn typed slowly. She told Claire that all company communication had to go through the attorney. She told her the 30-day deadline remained. She told her, gently, to protect herself. Then Evelyn put the phone down. The next morning, Margaret changed tactics. Since private guilt had not worked, she tried public pity. Her Facebook post was long and carefully written. It spoke about family heartbreak, daughters who forget where they come from, and the pain of being rejected by a child you raised. She wrote that Evelyn was trying to ruin a family business that had served the community for decades. She posted a photo of Heartline events from years ago. Margaret smiling in front. Robert beside her. Nolan in a pressed shirt, holding a tray like he had ever carried one for more than a picture. Evelyn was in the background of the photo, half cut off, holding a clipboard. That part almost made her laugh. Even in Margaret's proof of family, Evelyn was visible only as labor. At first, the comments went the way Margaret wanted. Praying for you. Children can be so ungrateful. Success changes people. Money makes daughters cold. Then Lauren posted one screenshot. Not with anger. Not with insults. Just a still image from Nolan's livestream. Evelyn in her wedding dress. Margaret standing. Robert in the aisle with the envelope. Nolan's own caption underneath, laughing at his loser sister. Then Caleb's cousin posted a short clip of the plane. Someone from the church wrote a calm comment explaining what she had seen. A guest posted that the medical accusation had been made publicly with no proof. Another person asked why a mother would pay to shame her daughter on her wedding day, then call herself rejected. Margaret deleted the post within an hour. But deletion did not pull the words back into her mouth. By evening, Heartline's business page was filling with questions. Is it true the owners sabotaged their daughter's wedding? Were they live streaming it? Why would we trust them with our event? A bride canceled a consultation. A church asked for updated licenses before confirming a fundraiser. A school administrator requested recent food safety records. Robert blamed Evelyn for all of it. But Evelyn had not posted the plane. Margaret had paid for it. Evelyn had not filmed the aisle. Nolan had. Evelyn had not carried an envelope to the groom. Robert had. For the first time, the family's favorite tool turned against them. Image. They had spent years hiding truth behind smiles, matching shirts, polished invoices, and small-town praise. Now people had seen them without the polish. And they could not unsee it. 3 days later, an email arrived from a name Evelyn did not know. The subject line read, "You should check the cold logs." Evelyn opened it at her kitchen table. The message was from a former Heartline employee. She wrote that after seeing the wedding video, she finally believed someone might listen. She said Nolan had been ignoring refrigeration records. She said trucks were used after warning lights came on. She said equipment was stored in ways that did not match the permits. She attached photos, dates, and names. Evelyn sat very still. Then another message arrived from a former vendor. Then one from a kitchen assistant. Each one carried a piece of the same picture. Late payments. Unsafe shortcuts. Broken equipment. Staff told to make it work. A son protected from responsibility. A business surviving on borrowed trust and free property. Evelyn read everything twice. She wanted her family to face consequences, but she did not want strangers hurt because Robert and Nolan had turned carelessness into a business habit. There was a line between justice and recklessness. She would not cross it just because her family had. So she sent the concerns to the proper authorities. No exaggeration. No dramatic language. Just records, photos, dates, and names. Within days, an inspection was scheduled. Heartline tried to call it harassment, but the problems were real. One prep area was ordered to pause operations until repairs were made. A refrigerated truck was pulled from service. Storage issues had to be corrected before several upcoming events could move forward. The cost hit quickly. Refunds. Rental equipment. Emergency repairs. Clients asking questions. Vendors demanding payment before delivery. Nolan stopped posting. That silence was louder than his live stream had been. Margaret's voicemails changed too. The fake heartbreak disappeared. Her voice became thinner, sharper, less controlled. You have no idea what you're doing. You are hurting innocent people. Call your father. This has gone far enough. Evelyn saved each one. Robert tried calling Caleb. Caleb answered once, on speaker, while Evelyn sat beside him. Robert did not greet him. You need to talk sense into your wife. Caleb looked at Evelyn first, as if giving her the choice to stop him. She nodded once. Caleb brought the phone closer. What happened at the church went too far, he said. Everything now is just the bill arriving. Then he ended the call. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. He gave a small shrug. I said what I meant. She reached for his hand. Still, she knew he could not become the center of it. Her family would love that. They would say Caleb had changed her. They would say marriage made her cruel. They would say an outsider had turned their daughter against them. But the truth was not that simple for them, and not that easy for them to blame. Evelyn had been turning away for years. Quietly. Step by step. Every unpaid hour. Every insult renamed concern. Every holiday where Nolan was praised for work she had done. Every time her parents took her skill, her storage, her patience, and called it family. The wedding did not create the break. It only made it visible. As the deadline approached, the storage quotes came back higher than Robert had expected. Cold hookups cost money. Loading space cost money. Commercial insurance cost money. Moving damaged equipment cost money. For years, Heartline had stayed alive partly because Evelyn's property had absorbed costs no one wanted to name. They had not built stability. They had borrowed it from a daughter they mocked. On day 27, Robert's attorney sent a request for an extension. Not an apology. Not an admission. Not a plan to pay fair rent. Just more time. Evelyn's attorney replied with one question. Would Heartline Events pay current market rent during the extension? There was no answer. That silence said everything. They did not want fairness. They wanted the old arrangement. Free storage. Free access. Free forgiveness. Free Evelyn. The 30th day arrived on a gray morning. Evelyn woke before her alarm and lay still, listening to the soft sound of Caleb breathing beside her. For a moment, she felt like the girl she used to be, waiting for her parents to decide whether she had been good enough. Then she turned her head and saw her wedding ring catching a thin line of light. She was not waiting anymore. By noon, her attorney confirmed there had been no request to schedule removal. By evening, no equipment had moved. No truck. No freezer. No oven. No rack of linens. Nothing. The next morning, Evelyn drove to the warehouse with Caleb and her attorney. The building sat at the edge of the old industrial district, just as it always had. A chain-link fence surrounded the yard. Weeds pushed through cracks in the pavement. The side office window was dusty. The loading doors wore years of scratches from trucks backing in and out. But now, Evelyn saw it differently. Not as a forgotten place. Not as family storage. As proof. Robert's refrigerated truck still lined the side wall. Portable ovens sat near the back. Stacks of folded tables leaned against metal shelving. Linen carts, ice machines, serving stations, bins, chairs, and equipment filled the space from one end to the other. Her attorney walked slowly, taking photos. Caleb stayed near Evelyn, quiet. Evelyn touched one of the old metal shelves with her fingertips. It was cold. She did not feel joy. She did not feel revenge. She felt clear. That was stronger. Triumph needs noise. Clarity does not. By that afternoon, her attorney sent the demand. $92,000. Back storage value. Unauthorized use fees. Post-deadline charges. Initial legal costs. The number was not chosen out of anger. It came from tax records, property dates, commercial rates, saved photos, texts, and years of unpaid use. It was math. The kind her family had trusted her to understand when it helped them, and hated her for understanding when it protected her. The call started before dinner. Margaret. Robert. Nolan. Unknown numbers. Aunts. Cousins. Former neighbors. People from church. People who had watched a video of her humiliation and said nothing, now suddenly ready to speak about mercy. Evelyn answered none of them. By midnight, there were more than 200 missed calls. She blocked numbers until her thumb hurt. 2 days later, Margaret came alone. She stood in Evelyn's driveway wearing a cream coat and dark sunglasses, though the sky was cloudy. She looked smaller than she had at the wedding, but not softer. People like Margaret did not come to apologize. They came to recover the room. Evelyn stepped outside with her phone already recording. Margaret noticed. "Do you really need that?" "Yes." Her mother laughed once, without warmth. "You have become cold." "No," Evelyn said. "I have become careful." Margaret removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were dry. "I hope you are proud of yourself." Evelyn waited. "The business is bleeding money. Your father is not sleeping. Nolan's marriage is under strain. Employees are scared. People are gossiping. Is this what you wanted?" "I wanted you to leave me alone." Margaret's mouth tightened. "You made us desperate." Evelyn almost smiled at that. "No. I made you accountable." Margaret stepped closer. "The banner was meant to wake you up. You were making a mistake. At my wedding. You were marrying into people who do not know you. They knew enough not to bribe my husband." Margaret's eyes flashed. "Your father was trying to protect him." "From what?" "From a life with someone who abandons family when things get hard." Evelyn held her mother's gaze. The driveway seemed very quiet. "You mean someone who stops working for free?" Margaret looked away first. It was quick, but Evelyn saw it. Then Evelyn asked the question she already knew the answer to. "The food at the reception. Was that you?" Margaret rolled her eyes. That small motion did more damage than any confession could have. "It was a joke," she said. "A stupid joke. You always made everything bigger than it needed to be." For a moment, Evelyn was back in every room of her childhood. Every time she had been hurt and told she was dramatic. Every time Nolan had been cruel and she was told to stop being sensitive. Every time her parents took something from her and called her selfish for noticing. The old pain rose. Then passed. Not gone. Just no longer in charge. "I want you to leave," Evelyn said. Margaret stared at her. "You will regret choosing money over blood." Evelyn opened the front door. "No," she said. "You confused blood with ownership." Margaret stood there a second longer, waiting for the daughter who used to soften. That daughter did not come to the door. So Margaret left. That night, Robert sent one long email because every phone number he used had been blocked. At first, it was the same old language. Family. Pressure. Duty. The business. Everything they had built. Everything Evelyn was destroying. But near the end, maybe from exhaustion, maybe from anger, maybe because he thought one final truth would make her feel guilty, Robert wrote the sentence that explained her whole life. "You were never supposed to leave for good." Evelyn stopped reading. Then continued. He wrote that Nolan was never meant to run Heartline alone. Her parents had always expected Evelyn to come back after college and manage the hard parts: compliance, contracts, licenses, vendor systems, storage, inspections, schedules, payroll problems. Nolan would be the face. Evelyn would keep the machine working. That was the plan. He wrote that when she stayed in Minneapolis, everything became harder. When she bought her condo, Margaret felt humiliated. When she got engaged to Caleb, they realized she might never come back. And when she made the wedding in Minnesota, not Iowa, they felt she had chosen another family over them. So they decided to make her feel the loss. Evelyn read the email 3 times. She did not cry. Some truths do not break you. They organize the pieces. All her life, she had wondered why love in that house felt like a bill she could never finish paying. Now she knew. They had not raised her to be loved. They had trained her to be useful. And when she became free, they called it betrayal. The email became evidence too. In the weeks that followed, Heartline Events lost 2 major contracts. The inspection repairs cost more than Robert admitted. The equipment was finally moved to a facility with rent so high that Nolan complained about it online, then deleted the post within minutes. Too late. Lauren had already saved it. Nolan's livestream became the story people remembered. Not because Evelyn pushed it. Because Nolan had given the town a clear picture of his own cruelty and called it entertainment. Margaret stopped posting photos of perfect family dinners. Robert stopped calling. Claire quietly separated her finances from Nolan. Employees began finding other work. Heartline did not close overnight. Life rarely gives endings that clean. But the business that had stood on Evelyn's silence no longer stood easily. For the first time, her family had to carry the weight they had placed on her. And Evelyn did not pick it up for them. One Sunday evening, Caleb's parents invited them to dinner. There was roasted chicken, warm bread, and too many people talking at once. Caleb's mother asked Evelyn if she wanted more potatoes. His father told a terrible joke and laughed before anyone else could. Caleb's sister slid a listing across the table for a house closer to them and said, "No pressure. I just think you'd like the porch." Evelyn looked around the table. No one was using her. No one was testing her. No one was waiting for her to shrink. The room was ordinary. That was what made it beautiful. Later that night, Evelyn stood on the porch with Caleb while the sky turned dark blue above the neighborhood. No plane. No banner. No voice calling her useless from above. Just quiet. Caleb leaned against the railing beside her. "Do you miss them?" Evelyn thought about lying because the truth was not simple. Then she said, "I miss who I kept hoping they would become." Caleb nodded. He understood the difference. Evelyn looked down at her ring, then at the soft light coming from the house behind them. "I don't miss being owned." A few months later, the wedding photos arrived. For a while, Evelyn did not open the gallery. She was afraid every picture would carry the sound of that plane, the feeling of those phones rising, the sight of her father holding out an envelope like her future had a price. But when she finally opened them, she saw something else. Caleb's hand around hers. Lauren standing near the aisle, already watching Nolan's phone. Caleb's mother between Evelyn and Margaret like a wall made of grace. Guests standing during the kiss. Evelyn smiling through pain, not because she was weak, but because she had already decided the day would not belong to the people trying to ruin it. One photo stopped her. It was taken just after the ceremony. The plane was still faint in the background, small now, almost powerless against the wide sky. In the foreground, Caleb was looking at Evelyn like there was no banner, no lie, no family loud enough to change what he knew. Evelyn ordered that photo in a simple frame. Not because the day had been perfect. Because it had been hers. The last email she ever sent her parents was short. She told them all further legal matters would remain with the attorney. She told them not to come to her home again. She told them she hoped one day they would understand that consequences were not cruelty. Then she added one final line. I was your daughter before I was ever your resource. She pressed send. Then she blocked the address. There was no dramatic ending after that. No final courtroom speech. No tearful family reunion. No mother falling to her knees. Real freedom is often quieter than revenge. It is a phone that no longer makes your stomach tighten. It is a holiday where you do not rehearse answers before walking through the door. It is a meal where love is not measured by how much pain you can swallow politely. It is waking up and realizing you do not have to prove your worth to people who profited from pretending not to see it. Evelyn did not destroy her family. She stopped protecting them from the cost of their own choices. That was the part they could never forgive. And that was the part that finally set her free. Because keeping peace is not noble when peace means standing still while others erase you. Forgiveness is not healing when people use it as permission to harm you again. And family is not a word that gives someone the right to take your labor, your land, your joy, or your dignity. Sometimes the people who call your boundaries cruel are only angry because your silence used to serve them. So if you have ever been called selfish for choosing your own peace, remember Evelyn's story. Evidence is not revenge. Boundaries are not betrayal. And consequences are not cruelty. They are what happens when the truth finally stops asking permission to be seen.